Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. Yes, it's official as of last week. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and I'm so excited to have you join us here today. Our show is The Art of Creating Mental Health Wealth. And joining me this and every week is my co-host and friend. She has quite a backstory herself. Her name is JENETTA Barry with the Epiphany Process. Let's welcome her to the program. Hi, JENETTA.
Hello. Hi, Dr. JACALYN. As always, I just love this space that we create every week. And it's an honor and pleasure to be back again.
Well, it's so nice to have you again. I hope that you're nice and warm, because I know it was a little cold last time.
Yeah, from the heat of Africa to the cold of UK, but actually it is warming up here. Yay. Thank goodness. I don't do well in the cold. Well, I do, but I prefer not to.
I prefer the heat as well. So yay for both of us. And we've got quite a show planned today. You've got a wonderful guest that you brought who's got an amazing story himself. Before we bring him out, JENETTA, I'd love to highlight you. And for people who are joining us for the first time, especially on our new radio channels, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what is the Epiphany Process.
Oh, thank you, Dr. JACALYN. The Epiphany Process is a process that I honed and skilled and studied and researched nearly 17 years ago now, after my greatest life test. And I had been a motivational speaker and realized that I was leaving people without the tools to actually inspire themselves and be resilient and emotionally resilient. And I was questioning that and studying other things when I came to this greatest life test. And at the time, my 16-year-old daughter, Jenny, had been going through a roller coaster of challenge in terms of feeling, filled with suicidal ideation. And one day I was setting safekeeping house rules because she was breaking them. And it escalated into an enormous argument between she and I. And she stormed out in an enormous rage to pack and leave home. And after a while, I sensed something wasn't right. And I went to find her. And I found her in her shower where she had killed herself. So my whole life went to ground zero. And for a while, I believed that happening would define me for the rest of my life and leave me in this deeply dark, emotional black hole that it was like a prison sentence that I would never be able to get out. Until prophetically, 9 months after Jenny died, I had an aha moment where I realized that I still had choice, and I'd forgotten I still had choice. And at that moment, I decided to start researching and studying ways to accurately get out of this hole that I was in, because other modalities had been helpful, but there were still parts that didn't work and there were still missings. And with the result that, I know I always say I didn't have a JENETTA to help me in those days, but what I've been able to do is help people over the years, all over the world, internationally, online, with this process, people who've been traumatized in terrorist attacks, young people or even older people who are stuck in bed and can't get out because they're so very, very depressed. And even people with day-to-day challenges I've been able to help. And I haven't looked back. So that's what the Epiphany process is. in a nutshell.
JENETTA, every time I hear you share the story, I still get chills. I just can't even imagine. Even today, I mean, it never goes away. The pain recedes somewhat, yes, but it doesn't go away, right?
Yeah, there's a manageability where when you can weigh up the amount of value of what's happened as much as there's been disservice in what's happened. When you have that balance of thought and feeling, then it's easier to, on a mental and an emotional level, to bring all extreme thoughts and extreme feelings into manageability. So as much as the loss is there for the rest of my life, it's there. It's never going to go away. It's a part of who I am. It's actually also been my way of moving forward and become my really my reason for living. So as much as it is challenging, it's also become inspiring at the same time. And that's where I can talk from manageability. That doesn't mean there won't be times where I find something a little bit challenging. Birthdays, sometimes when Jenny's friends get married and having babies at the moment, I stop and wonder, I wonder what she'd have been like. But it's not from a deep, extreme sense of emotion or overthinking.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being here and being so genuine.
Oh, well, thank you for creating this space with me. I love co-creating this with you.
And this platform is all about people coming forward and sharing their stories to inspire just one person, let alone tens of thousands. So you are definitely doing that. And I suspect our guest backstage is going to do the same thing when we bring him out onto this platform. So I'm going to spotlight you. And if you can introduce Derrick, that would be great.
Absolutely. So to our viewers and listeners today, I'm proud to announce we have Derrick Mcmanus from Australia. And Derrick speaks at conferences and facilitates talking about human durability. And boy, is he qualified for this. He holds workshops internationally. And his research in doing this has included collaborating with the University of South Australia School of Psychology and the Military and Emergency Services Health Australia. And I'm not going to give too much of this backstory because I don't want to steal the thunder, but I also want to allow Derrick to give his own impact in this. But after having been shot 14 times with massive injuries, he pulled out and about 2.5, 3 years of having to be pulled through all those injuries and bring himself back through physical rehab. He was able to admit or acknowledge that there was no stress or anxiety or PTSD with what had happened to him. And so I'm going to hand over to Derrick. Derrick, welcome today. Tell us more about human durability.
Hi, Derrick. Welcome to the program.
Dr. JACALYN and JENETTA, thank you so much. It is honestly great to be here. JENETTA, I didn't know your story beforehand. That's quite a powerful story and quite a reason for having that drive, that inspiration to go out and help people. That's accolades to you for that. Now, my background, as you described, I've been shot 14 times. To put it into perspective, I was a policeman, so I was on the good side of the law and I didn't get shot as a criminal. My background is 42 years of policing, and part of that I was in what we call in South Australia the STAR group, so Special Task and Rescue STAR group. We're responsible for high-risk arrest, hostage siege, counter-terrorism. I was VIP security to the Queen when the Queen came out. And we did cliff rescue, cave rescue, all those sorts of things. A job that I absolutely loved. My mum saw it slightly differently, but we were trained and we were prepared to be able to manage those situations. And that's part of where what I call human durability comes from. Certainly the fact that I was shot 14 times, lying on the ground for 3 hours before anybody could get to me. The first doctor said that I'd lost so much blood that he actually didn't think I was alive. I then took a last gasping breath, and he worked his magic. He and his team worked his magic, and they were actually risking their lives at that time to save my life. But as you described, I went to see a psychiatrist just 3 months after this shooting. Now, if you can imagine lying on the ground for 3 hours, fully conscious for 3 hours, just working through these injuries, keeping my mindset in the right place. Everybody thought that when I went to see a psychiatrist, I'd be in therapy for decades, because that's what most people expect, and that's what happens to most people. But I believe that I prepared myself in a different way to what most people prepare themselves. I prepared myself physically, obviously being in Star Group, that it's essentially the same as your Navy SEALs. So we're operating at that high level, we're physically fit, mentally prepared. But I went one step further, and I was emotionally prepared as well. So I prepared physically, mentally, and that's the intellectual. That's policies, procedures, legislation, processes, all those things that we need to know to get a job done. But I'd prepared emotionally as well. And I'd already said to myself, if I get shot, what's going to happen in my mind that's going to be the opposite of what my body wants to do? And how do I best manage that to be able to get through it? I'd also taken responsibility for my choice, my actions, my consequence, whether they were good or bad, and then the future afterwards as well. And this is what the psychiatrist most related to when we had this discussion. So just 3 months after the shooting, I went to see the psychiatrist, and we discussed backwards and forwards. Essentially, I didn't think there was anything wrong with me, but I insisted I needed to go and speak to a psychiatrist, because my whole idea was I wanted to pick his brain about what might happen in the future. And if it does happen, how can I best handle it? What would be the best tools that I could have in my kit box, my kit bag, to be able to manage those situations. So I picked his brain, he picked my brain about what was happening, what I'd accepted, and all those sorts of things. And 3 months after the shooting, he cleared me psychologically to go back to work the next day, and never had to come back and see him again after that, unless I chose that I wanted to. Now, this blew people's minds. They've gone, how can you possibly go through all that and have no PTSD, no anxiety, no stress, no depression, and be able to go back to work the next day, 3 months after the shooting? But I was able to go back psychologically. Physically, it took me 2.5 years. But the concept of human durability is going beyond resilience, going beyond the ability to bounce back, but it's about sustaining an optimal performance no matter what the challenges that you see. Now, optimal is very, very different to peak performance. Peak performance, way up there, absolute best, but peak is peak for a reason. You don't stay up there for a long time, so it's not sustainable. So what I had thought through beforehand was, if I get shot, what can I expect my best performance in those circumstances to be? What's optimal? What will get me through to the point where I can start getting better and improve afterwards? Because when you get shot once, let alone 14 times, you can't go, oh, I got shot, but cross fingers, barleys, I'm going to be fixed, I'm going to be up and going. It's about, how do you sustain your life? How do you sustain your performance to be able to get back up? And I'm now able to apply this to 10-year-old kids in schools going through their bullying, relationships, challenges with school and families and all those sorts of things, as well as to CEOs, to hairdressers, to bankers, to finance, to real estate. And at the top end, I work with our fighter pilots, the equivalent of your Top Gun guys.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing and so inspiring and just uplifting. But the first question I have, first, I just want to congratulate you for taking what happened to you and then going out into the world and helping other people. That is truly tremendous. When you think back to that day that you were shot, compared to pain that you had experienced in your life before, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad was the pain from the shooting?
Well, bizarrely, I didn't have a lot of pain on the day of the shooting. I knew that I'd been shot. I knew that I'd been hit. I felt like somebody had punched me in the stomach, like somebody had hit me with a sledgehammer in the leg, but it wasn't a burning, searing pain. It wasn't completely overwhelming. Doctors cannot explain why that is, because there are other people who are high on drugs when they get shot and they feel all sorts of massive pains. So there's something that happens in our mind, some power that we're able to have to be able to manage those things. And I do not know what it is. I can't teach anybody how to deal with pain, but I can teach them how to deal with their emotions, because everybody expected that when I got shot and lying on the ground for 3 hours, I would either be passed out or I'd be in absolute panic mode and not know what to do. But because I'd prepared physically, mentally, and emotionally, I'd taken a look at that situation and said, if I get shot and I don't die, what would I like to be my best performance? So I knew I had to control shock, not let shock take control of my body. I had to control panic, not let panic take control of the situation. Then I knew I had to slow down my heart rate, and then I had to slow down my breathing. But I had done this before the shooting. It wasn't wait until I get in the shooting and go, what do I do now? It was preparing beforehand that allowed me to put it into action when it did happen, that allowed me to sustain an optimal performance for the 3 hours I was on the ground. And then they got me to hospital. Now, by the time I got to hospital, I was passing in and out of consciousness. And when I woke up after surgery, about 6 hours worth of surgery, that's when the pain hit. And that was excruciating at that time. And there was no amount of mindset that I had at that time that was able to deal with that pain. But I was on some very strong, beautiful medications.
Yeah, so I just love the fact that you've been able to highlight that people think that peak performance is something that you should perfectly sustain and not let go of, and then you've got it all right. And I always say these things happen in cycles because our whole world is cyclical. So my question to you is, when one's not at that peak and the cycles are going backwards and forwards, where you're in manageability most of the time, but what do you do with the people you work with to manage those cycles of peaking and going down again and back up and down again?
So I think the first thing to do is to get into people's heads that, as you rightly pointed out, peak performance is not a sustainable thing. It's up there for a reason. And to be vulnerable enough to go, as much as my boss wants me to stay at peak performance, as much as my family wants me to stay the peak parent, as much as my sporting team wants me to be the peak performer throughout the whole game, it's impossible to do. You have to have highs and lows. And as you say, this is cyclical throughout life. And so the first thing that I do is I get people to understand that the highs and the lows are a normal part of life. And when we're having a high, it's great. And when we're having a low, that should be great as well. Because if you just take a basic look at an Olympic athlete, they have a peak performance when they go to the world trials, whatever sport it is. When they go to the world competition, which is halfway through their Olympic cycle, they are at a peak there. And after that peak, then they start coming down. And they get the massage, they take the rest, they recuperate, they refresh, replenish, re-energize, and then re-engage in competition and come back up. So their life is cyclical, and everybody goes, oh, well, yes, they're athletes, but I'm me, so I should be up here all the time. That's what society expects. But when we're vulnerable enough to go, do you know something? I don't need to be up there all the time. There are times that I need to have a good sleep, have good food, get meaningful connections with people, have empathy for myself, for other people, indulge myself in the things that I love. Because when we're doing the things we love, that's when we replenish our brain and get re-energized and excited about life again. And those are the things that we need to do. Yes, we need peak performance at certain times. There's no way I could go into a high-risk operation and go, oh, I'm in holiday mode, so I'm just going to take it easy. No. During those situations, I need to be peak. But I can't sustain that for 24 hours. right? There has to be a break where we bring in the next team and they take over. We have a rest, then they bring in the next team, and then we will come back again. So it's understanding that that's a normal cycle, and it's okay to indulge ourselves and relax and have those lows, because that's when we get the energy. That's actually when we have our creative times where we go, oh, do you know, I could have dealt with that better. This is how I want to do it next time I do it. And so the first one is just getting their head around the fact that it's normal to have highs and lows.
I love that you shared that, especially for those of us who are type A. Type A, it's like, no, I have to be a peak performance all the time. I'm really going to take what you said and take it to heart.
Yeah, well, I'm a type A as well, but I'm the most relaxed type A. In fact, I was just having a conversation with my partner. I explained to her, I believe that I'm the most patient person in the world. And she's saying, well, why aren't you patient with this, that you want to make it happen so quickly? And I've gone, oh, well, I am patient. But when I see something that I know will happen and I know will be great, I want to make it happen now, because it's possible. If something needs time, I'm the most patient person in the world. So I call myself a very relaxed type A personality.
In fact, you could be my twin brother. The way you talk and the way you present what you're saying, because it's all that I've seen time and time again. And the moment we understand that those fluctuations are a part of life, and that you're not failing, especially type A people, you're not failing when you're down, that those downs are as valuable and as important as the ups. And that makes a big difference. And I wanted to ask you, when you're helping people through, does your way of working with them include physical work, or just the emotional?
I can do the physical work. I can take people on adventure weekends and throw them off cliffs, abseiling, and get them jumping out of helicopters and swimming through cold water. I don't need to, though, right? That is a certain type of adventure and a certain type of challenge. My workshops are purely seated discussion, reflection, analyzing, but having lots of fun while we're still doing it. And fun has been a huge part of my life. And in actual fact, when I tell the story of being shot 14 times, people are amazed at how much they laugh at what happened to me at the time I was being shot, for the 3 hours that I was lying on the ground, the crazy things that happened, the crazy things that I thought. But I was able to have all these relaxed thoughts and light-hearted conversation with myself while still being very particular about what I did and what I needed to do to take care of myself. And again, it's that cyclical thing. At times I needed to take care of myself, and other times I was able to say, okay, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to be comfortable. I know where I am, and my thoughts wandered off to some absolutely crazy stuff that people just crack up laughing. And it's quite amazing that people crack up laughing at me being shot 14 times. But that's kind of my personality as well.
Derrick, thank you for sharing that. And I'm wondering, as you were preparing yourself, if you ever got shot, which imagine that someone's preparing, how did you prepare, if at all, for the feelings that you would have towards the person who shot you?
You know, this is a really good question, because particularly when I'm doing workshops with kids in schools, or those people who like to play victim to life all the time, because people say to me, don't you want revenge on this person? Don't you want to be able to shoot them? Don't you want to be able to pay them back? Wouldn't you like to see them dead? And my answer is always that if I wanted to behave that way, and I actually took a violent act against that person and injured them, you know, let alone do something worse than just injure them, what sort of person would that make me? That would make me exactly the same sort of person that he is. And that's not the person I want to be. Now, I don't deny that at certain phases in my recovery, I was going through so much pain and anguish and trouble that I had those thoughts run through my mind. There was one period where I wanted vicious, venomous revenge against this guy. but I'm very thankful that I didn't act on it. And I actually wrote those feelings into a journal. And it wasn't until I read that journal back through many years later that I've gone, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I had that. So I think it was very much a process of I wrote the feeling down and then I was able to let it go. But it, as part of my personality, I'm kind of ethical. I've been a policeman for 42 years. I have lots of ethics. But ethically, I need to, and this is what I talk to people about, who's responsible for me getting shot? And when I talk to kids and certainly the victims, they go, well, the guy with the gun, he shot you. He pointed the rifle, he pulled the trigger, and I've gone, excellent. We can blame him. Anybody else we can blame. And we go through the whole range of, well, your boss, your mates, the people you're with, let's blame the people who manufactured the guns, people who manufacture the ammunition. And I go, excellent. And then somebody will say, well, you're responsible. And the long story short, at first I'm a bit lighthearted by saying, me, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not responsible, because that's generally the response that people give when somebody says, who's responsible for this? But the point I like to make to people is I've got to take responsibility for my part in this overall event. My part was this much. He definitely pointed the rifle, he pulled the trigger. My bosses made certain decisions, my team made certain decisions. Everybody needs to take responsibility for their part. But I made a decision to become a police officer. That's a very dangerous job. And every man, woman in blue will tell you it's a very dangerous job just to be a police officer. I then made a choice to become Star Group. I then made a choice to become a sniper, underwater recovery diver. I trained with the military SAS in counterterrorism. I needed to take responsibility for my choices to put me there and my choice to go to that house on the day. I had a choice to go, no, this is too dangerous. I want to back away. I didn't say that. So I need to take responsibility for that part. If I don't take responsibility for that part, then I can't change that behavior. If I say I didn't do it, I did nothing wrong, it's not my fault, then I'm going to take that same action again because I didn't do anything wrong. So we've got to be able to take responsibility for our part. And so in that essence, I don't have a want of revenge or retribution against the guy that shot me. Now, having said that, if something bad happened to him, I'm not sure I would lose a lot of sleep over it, but it's not me that wants that to happen to him.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And when you made the decision to go back to work after that 3-month period where you had seen the therapist, had you already come to the realization that you also were responsible for the shooting, or did that come later?
Do you know, at that stage, I think it was just an intuitive thing. I hadn't consciously thought through that process. And it was probably just an intuitive thing, something that I've been brought up by my parents to embody, that I needed to take responsibility for certain parts of my life. I'd certainly been through many struggles where I certainly needed to address certain things, and I knew if I didn't address them, then I wasn't going to be able to change them. But it wasn't a conscious thing at that time. And it wasn't until I started running these workshops, working with people, and they were saying, well, what were you thinking here? What was your response? How did you get to that mindset? And I actually had to go down and sit down and do some introspection and analyze my own behaviors, thoughts, beliefs, my ethics. And it wasn't until I started doing that, I've gone, actually, the process that I went through was this. And a bit like JENETTA was saying, that once you realize what that process is, you find it's very powerful, that you can actually help to change other people's lives. Very much like your epiphany process. It's there are lots of things out there that people say work, but when you actually find that one that does work, it's just, it feels natural. And that's what most people say to me, Derrick, this just, what you teach just makes sense. And it's easy to implement.
What I'm hearing is that you're helping people to understand the power of taking accountability, because the moment you're not accountable, you're actually giving your power over to whoever you perceive you're being victimized or martyred by. But the moment you come back into that accountability state, you're in your power. and
Absolutely.
that's when you feel so enlightened. And it's just, I don't come across many people who understand this language. That's why I was saying you could be my twin brother.
That's a very
Because
generous compliment. Thank you.
because people just don't get it until they start doing it. You can get it in theory,
and even when we have these discussions, it's challenging for them. They just go, oh, but it wasn't my fault. It was you just take part. And this is something that I love to talk to corporations about, because if we can get our staff to step up and go, actually, I was responsible for this part, then we are going to have less things go wrong in corporations, because people are taking responsibility, they're owning their behaviors, and they will change those behaviors next time.
Yeah, and almost automatically, because when you're in that place of power, you actually can access your inner genius, your inner wisdom, because you're not being distracted by extreme emotions and thoughts. And after you, you're our guest. I want to hear your thoughts.
I'm very interested in what you're saying. Please, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, go on. And you were saying, when
we're talking on the top of each other, trying to give way to each other as well. And I've actually lost my train of thought now as to where I was.
No, I was saying that when you do this, you can access your wisdom.
Absolutely, and thank you, because that reminds me, when we take responsibility for our own actions and we're able to understand and kind of judge ourselves as to whether we did the right thing, the wrong thing, or was it within what we intended, we're less worried about other people's judgments, because that doesn't matter anymore. I've already judged me. I know what I did right or wrong, and I know I'm going to be able to take account for it and do something to change it next time, rather than just worrying about, oh, I hope nobody saw me. I hope nobody's going to blame me. And so it is a very, very powerful position to have in relation to accountability. I completely agree with you.
So, Derrick, I'm curious, having taken responsibility for your part in the shooting, how did that impact your behavior after you went back on the job? Because there's a possibility that you could be shot again, right?
Absolutely. But I like to think that I'm the most optimistic realist that there is alive. I'm very much an optimistic person, but I'm also a realist. And I know that before the shooting, I'd taken a very serious look at the choices that I was making, the actions I was going to take, the possible consequences, and what life might be like after that. And I had to do the same again when I went back. And I had to consider, have the risks changed? No, the risks haven't changed. Have my abilities to manage those risks changed? No, they haven't. Am I prepared to take those risks again, physically, mentally, and emotionally? And one of the most important things is my family willing to support me. And I say that's one of the most important things, because if any member of my family had said, Derrick, I don't think it's right, or Dad, I'm really worried about this, I don't know that I'll be able to sleep at night if I know you're out there, I would have changed like that and found a different job to do. My family was always the most important thing. For the 3 hours I was lying on the ground, I was thinking about my family, as well as doing all the things that I needed to do. But I was thinking about my family and about my potential future. So, that's where that sat with me.
If you were to cast your mind back to before this happened to you, what would you say, if it hadn't happened, what would you say would be missing in your life now that this has given you? That if your life had carried on and you'd safely gone through your career and not got too seriously injured, what would be missing?
Do you know, I think it would be the insight into how powerful any person is. Now, I'm able to reflect on that because I see my own strength now, being able to manage that, the way I was thinking. I see my own strength, but I also see that strength reflected in a lot of other people. And the ability to be able to help someone find that strength within them I would never have got to that point. I always had that sort of ability in me that I was able to see people's strengths, but I'm now able to go just that little bit further and able to articulate to them, I believe you are strong because of this and this and this. I see you're making decisions in this way, or I'm able to identify ways that they are missing or lacking in some areas that they could do with, just topping it up a little bit, and able to help them to identify those and bring those out in themselves as well.
So if you hadn't had that experience and gone down this path, and you'd remained in where you were, you wouldn't have what now in terms of job and family satisfaction? Because I can hear those are your two highest values.
Thank you. My highest achievement in my life, the thing that I try to achieve day in, day out, is to leave a legacy for my children. And that legacy is not about finance or possessions. It's about mindset and belief in themselves. And if I can leave that legacy for my children, that just fulfills everything for me. The fact that I'm able to do that for my children, as well as many other people as well, it is just, again, fulfilling to the nth degree. Yeah. I hope that answers the question. My mind's going a million different places, but I'm trying to keep it a little bit succinct.
Derrick, behind you, you have two things that are really significant. Would you like to share them with our audience?
Yeah, great. This one here, and these just sit in my office because there's, I like them. But this is the Olympic torch. It was from the 2000 Olympics, the Sydney Olympics in 2000, and I was a torch bearer and ran about 800 meters with this torch fully lit, and it's one of the greatest things I've done in my life. I really, really enjoyed it. And this one here was a scale model of the helicopter that I was rescued in. Now, after the shooting, I'd been lying on the ground for 3 hours, lost so much blood that the first doctor to get to me thought I was already dead. They treated me, brought me, stabilized me. I wasn't quite dead, but very, very, he said I was about 30 seconds from it. They then got me to this helicopter and flew in that helicopter back to the Royal Adelaide Hospital. The doctor that treated me had 10 of these models made up, scale models. He had 10 of them made up in Europe, and he presented me with that one. He and I are still friends at the moment. We catch up for coffee, we go for bike rides, things like that. And he wanted me to have that, and it's one of my prized possessions.
Thank you for sharing that. How much does the torch weigh when it's lit in your?
Oh, very little. It would be around about 1 kilo. It's very, very light. And obviously it's made for all sorts of different people to be able to carry it. Obviously you've got fit and healthy people that are doing these runs, but you also have disabled people that are doing it as well. So they had to make it easy for everybody. It's even ergonomically designed so it's easy to hold as well.
What did that experience mean for you or to you?
It was my opportunity to participate in something that was much bigger than me. It was a world event, and that footage was beamed across the world. So it's probably the biggest event that I'll ever be involved in my life. But it was kind of a recognition because I got the position partly because I've been shot and injured and recovered so well. But part of it also was community service and contribution. I've been a volunteer for, I used to run a child's gymnastics group when I was younger. I volunteered to help with people with Down syndrome, people with motor neuron disease. Currently, I still ride tandem push bikes with people with vision impairment. on the back of those tandem bikes. So I've always been a contributor. I was helping out in the kids' schools. So it was a recognition of my contribution to society as well. And it did. It just gave me this greatest pleasure to be able to run in this massive worldwide event.
That's really cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Huge congratulations. A reflection of all that you've done.
Yeah, and yeah, reflection, recognition. I was very, very proud to be asked to participate. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Derrick, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on our show today, and I know without a doubt you will have inspired many people who are perhaps at that point going, I don't know if I can carry on with what I'm dealing with because it is so overwhelming. And when they hear your amazing story, they go, well, that's fantastic, and it's possible. And
Absolutely.
huge accolades. Yeah. Well
Thank
done.
you so much. And as a last final message to the people listening to this, I have a mindset mantra that I'd like to actually share. And the mindset mantra is stay strong, find the system, work the system, tweak the system. I didn't realize this before I went through the shooting, and it wasn't until afterwards that I looked at how I managed the shooting, but many other challenges in my life. So we need to stay strong physically, mentally, and emotionally, right? And we can only do that if, like you, with your Jenny's World Day and that drive to help people, we can only stay strong physically, mentally, emotionally if we're doing something that has real meaning, right? And we're very clear on the vision, the outcome that we want from their actions we're going to take, and they're meaningful. So we've got to stay strong. That's the first one, physically, mentally, emotionally. We've then got to find the system that works for you. And that's the most important part. Most people I see go through life, they go, yeah, I need a system. JENETTA, what are you going to tell me? What's my system? What things should I do that's going to fix it? Dr. JACALYN, what can you tell me? I'm going to defer to you because you're the expert, rather than going, do you know something? I have a system that has got me over my challenges this far. I want to implement that system to get me over the next ones, right? So we need to find the system that has worked for us to get us to this point that we can then move forward with. Once you find that system, you work that system. Just absolutely immerse yourself in it, work it. And the most important part is when that system isn't quite working the way you want, then we need to tweak it just a little bit, just to get back on track. However, if it starts to plateau, that might be a time for you to go, do you know something? I actually need to rest. But the other part that we need to tweak is if it starts working for us really well at the start to amplify, then we need to work out what that amplification was and then tweak all the rest of our behaviors to reflect that thing that we're doing extremely well there. So it's stay strong, find the system, work the system, tweak the system. And that was the basis of everything that I've done.
What a great way to close out the show and leave our audience with that message. Thank you, Derrick.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on, both of you. It's been great to chat with you.
It's our pleasure. And you're welcome to come on to any of our other shows as well. I can see in my mind, I know there's several shows that would be a great fit for you to come and share your message there too.
Would love to.
And you're in Australia, is that correct?
I am, South Australia. It's just coming up to midnight here on Wednesday. So I'm about 14 hours in front of you, I think.
Well, thank you for staying up late with us. We appreciate it.
Love it. Absolutely worth every moment. Thank you so much.
We'll look forward to seeing you again.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.
And you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What an incredible person.
Wow. It's just so uplifting when you hear people stepping into their truth and their light because of their greatest adversity. And that is what mental health wealth is about. And it is an art, apart from the fact that we use art in this program, actual theatre and the arts, but it is an art to bring your mental health wellness into a place of manageability. And what a fine example we've had today. I'm so looking forward to chatting some more with Derrick in the future, because there's a lot of alignment there. Yeah.
And you know this when we have a guest on and we only have a certain amount of time because we're a live show, and there's so much more that we can learn from him. So we will definitely have him back on. JENETTA, I want to just highlight you again and for you to share with our audience how you can help people and who it is that you'd like to help.
Okay, thank you. So anybody who's feeling that they don't have the skills or the tools to move forward with challenges, be it any type of mental, emotional challenge. And if you're wanting to find out how you can step into a place of what I call emotional resiliency without always having to have that guru behind you, then I would be delighted to chat to you some more, because these skills, I mean, I have my existing clients always pull my leg and say, the problem with you, JENETTA, is that you're always losing clients. And it's true, because once they've got these powerful questions to ask themselves, they're gone. Every now and then they might need a little bit of tweaking with the questions when something very overwhelming steps into their lives and they have a bit of a top up with me. But what I love about this is that you are able to gain these skills and tools and move forward powerfully in your own right. So if this identifies with you, please do feel free to contact me at theepiphanyprocess.com. There's also World Jenny's Day, which also worldjennysday.com, which is an annual day where we celebrate mental health wellness through theatre and the arts. Do go and have a look at that. It's incredibly insightful. In fact, this week we have uploaded even more content from last year's 10th of October World Jenny's Day. There's a little bit of playback theatre, improv theatre in there, which is incredibly insightful, and some discussion forums as well. So I invite you to go there to have a look there, because that could help you through too. So please feel free. There's a place to contact me on both those sites, and I very much look forward to chatting to you in the future and with you in the future.
Thank you, JENETTA. And while I have you on Spotlight, can you share with our audience a little bit about our guest for next week, Karen Dark?
Oh, yes, Karen. Karen Dark is a British paraplegic gold medalist cyclist, paracyclist. She's the most amazing. Talk about resilience as well. She broke her back at a very young age. As a geologist, she was on a gold mine in Bolivia. And what she hasn't done is amazing. And Karen and I have a very special affiliation in World Jenny's Day. She is a World Jenny's Day ambassador. And we also have the number 79 that weave unbelievably regularly between us and World Jenny's Day and her Quest 79. And she's coming in to talk about her backstory and her future story. And one of the future stories is that she is cycling with World Jenny's Day between the 12th and the 16th of June in Kenya, as we start. A whole load of cyclists are joining us, and we're starting at the base of, the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro, cycling through Tsavo Game Reserves, west and east, and right through to the north coast of Kenya to Watamu over 5 days. And we're going to be chatting about that too next week. But do not miss Karen. I don't think I've met quite such an open-hearted soul. There's no frills. She's actually Dr. Karen Dark, and she doesn't even really particularly want to be referred to as that. She's just very plain, and I don't mean that in that way, but she's very just natural. And I think you'll love her as much as I've learned to love her as well.
Thank you, JENETTA. And where will people be able to watch World Jenny's Day?
Oh, yes, this is the how could I not mention this? I am so delighted, honored to be able to announce, we are delighted and honored to be able to announce that World Jenny's Day 2022 is being presented on that day on the USA Global TV and Radio platform. Ta-da! It is going to be awesome. I can't wait.
So excited, so exciting. And if people want to get involved with World Jenny's Day, how can that happen?
Again, go to the worldjennysday.com website. You can contact us directly there. And you don't have to be a performing artist to be part of World Jenny's Day. I mean, our bike ride through Savo was put together by a whole load of people in Kenya who perceive they don't have an ounce of theatrical creativity or artistic creativity in them, and they're all hard training runners and cyclists. And so if you come with something that you feel identifies with what we're doing and you would love to share it with us and collaborate with us, we would love to hear from you. So contact us on that forum.
Thank you so much. JENETTA, always a pleasure to see you. Before you go, we have one more announcement about a new show that we're actually doing together that's called A Woman's Prerogative. It's a program about women, for women, by women, and this is starting May the 4th.
It is. And we've got a number of people on as panelists to discuss that prerogative and guest speakers. And I can't wait. I think this is such a powerful forum to step into. And again, such an honor and privilege to be with you on that forum.
I'm very excited. And yesterday we did our first panel show on Talking Heads. And for people who are not aware, I'm just going to show quickly the graphic. Talking Heads are people who are experts. This is the branding. They are experts in their field. They have at least 5 years of experience. They are outstanding when it comes to presenting, and they have their own 30-minute show here on USA Global TV. And we had a group of 4 talking head experts yesterday that formed a panel, and we were talking about their thoughts on plastic being banned, pro or con. And it was a great discussion. So my point is, I'm really looking forward to more of these panel shows in addition to the interview shows that we have today. So that's exciting. So thank you for being part of the Women's Prerogative.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Can't wait.
All right, JENETTA, I'll say so long to you for right now, and I'm sure we'll be in touch via WhatsApp. Bye. Lots of love. See you later.
Lots of love.
Thank you, everyone. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you are a loyal viewer or listener, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really do appreciate it. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I left my corporate career in 2020 and was focused on life coaching, and it's amazing how I went from that to what we're doing today. So it's all because of you, our loyal following. So I do thank you so much. Our next show that's coming up is at 11 a.m. Eastern time, which is 4 p.m. British Summer Time, and it's the United Kingdom. So we are talking about news and culture. We have our expert correspondents, Ian Pelham-Turner, Helena Shard, and Simon McDonald joining us from the UK. And it's just a great opportunity to learn about what's going on in the United Kingdom and also have some fun. We have a lot of laughs on the show. So do stay tuned wherever you're watching us from, whatever platform. Please come back and see us. We've got a number of shows today. I think we have 7 shows today. We typically have between 20 and 25 shows every week. So look forward to seeing you when we come back shortly. Thank you so much. And thanks to JENETTA. Thanks to Derrick. It's really been wonderful having you here. We'll see you again soon. Bye.